Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. A lot of financial crimes to get to this morning and potential financial crimes to get to this morning. Bit of a mystery. We had the latest inflation information come out. And before that data from the government dropped, in the minute before, there were massive market moves. So huge question of whether or not that info was leaked so that people could jump out ahead of the news and profit to their benefit. Also, the SEC charging some sort of social media influencers with manipulating the market. So we'll tell you about that. We also have new text messages from many Republican members of Congress who were very interested in Stop the Steal and overturning the election. These were text messages exchanged with then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. We also have again, some new Elon Musk moves. He had originally said when he was taking over Twitter that he was not going to ban this account that shares the publicly available data about where his private jet is flying. He has now reversed course. He's also threatening to sue the 20-year-old who is running this account. So we'll get into all of that. We also have some new polling that we're going to lead the show with that has Ron DeSantis taking a significant lead over Donald Trump in the Republican primary. Matt Taibbi is also going to join us this morning to talk about the Twitter files and what his biggest takeaways are there. But before we get to any of that, live show.
I get to say it again. Live show. Put it up there on the screen. This is the last one, folks. Austin, Texas, Paramount Theater, February 3rd.
Yay.
On Friday. We will be there. This is going to be a wrap-up of the tour. Just for the West Coast folks, I would recommend coming to this one because it's probably going to be a little while before we do anything again. Paramount Theater, February 3rd, Friday, Austin, Texas. Krystal, Saagar, and friends. Maybe some other fun stuff that we're going to do while we're down there.
Yeah,
barbecue, of course, is what I'm talking about. Torchy's. Shout out to Torchy's Tacos. All right, so go ahead and buy tickets if you're a premium member. It's going to be exclusive, the pre-sale to premium members for the next couple of days and on sale to the general public afterwards. Premium members, just look in your email that you are going to receive today. The code will be in there for you guys to go ahead and buy tickets. As a reminder, lifetime members, just go ahead and buy your VIP ticket, and then we will reimburse the cost for the last couple of live shows. We are working on the reimbursement currently. It will be credited to your account on the credit card that you signed up for your membership on. All right, enough with the...
well, I have two more things to say.
Please.
Number one, very excited to come to Austin.
Yes.
We've been wanting to come to Austin for a long time.
Yeah.
We had an Austin show on the books before COVID hit. So this has been a long time coming. That's number one. Number two, you're welcome because this is obviously the perfect Christmas gift for the loved one in your life. So there you go.
That's true.
It was actually a little bit strategic announcing before the holidays, just in case. And it's right before Valentine's Day, the show. Anyway, I'll stop now.
Fun. It's going to be a fun time.
It'll be fun. We're looking forward to it. Love to see all of you guys there.
That's right.
All right, let's get to the show.
Our 2023 special. Let's start with Ron DeSantis. Some polling that really just shook the world. Should we take it seriously? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's put it up there on the screen. First and foremost was USA Today with a poll headline, Trump in trouble. Republican support for a 2024 bid falls amid political and legal setbacks. So what they point to is actual double-digit drop amongst GOP primary voters who prefer Trump to Ron DeSantis. And in fact, they are now showing a lead for Ron DeSantis amongst GOP and GOP-leaning voters on a 2-to-1 margin. Only 31% said that they want the former president to run, while 61% preferred some other Republican nominee who could continue the policies that Trump has pursued. 2/3 of those Republicans said that they were inclined specifically to vote for Ron DeSantis by a 56-33 margin. There's no way of getting around that. It's a disaster for Trump. To be clear on the poll itself, 1,000 registered voters, margin of error plus or minus 3.1 points, sample of 374 Republicans and independents who lean to the Republican Party with an error margin in that sample of 5.1 points. The reason it matters, though, is that it comes amidst a slew of other polls all pointing in the same direction. So let's go to the next one. This is from the Wall Street Journal, and this was a hypothetical matchup between the two. Very similar results here. DeSantis beating Trump at 52-38 amongst likely GOP primary voters, contemplating a race in which the first nominee votes will be cast in just about a year. The reason why I think I take that one a little bit more seriously, Krystal, is the USA Today poll was GOP and GOP-leaning voters.
Yeah.
GOP-leaning doesn't mean anything in a primary. This one is the Wall Street Journal specifically polling likely GOP primary voters. That was another tell to me. Registered voters versus likely. Likely is almost always far more important and more indicative. But again, we have just gone through multiple cycles now of polling being off, being completely and totally probably wrong. The order of the states still matters. As far as I know, RNC is still going up in Iowa and in New Hampshire. Those are two very Trump-friendly states. You know, DeSantis himself, the Florida primary, I believe is either on Super Tuesday or after Super Tuesday or around there later on in the cycle. So that would be where there'd be a true test. One of the things that got Marco Rubio to drop out in the 2016 race is when Trump actually beat him in his own home state in Florida. And he was like, okay, well, if you can't win your own home state, it's time to go. So we'll see. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just to dig into the numbers a little bit more, Trump's approval rating has fallen off among GOP voters, fallen to 74%. In the previous poll, it was 85%. The share that view him actively unfavorably has risen from 13% to 23%. Digging into the Trump versus DeSantis head-to-head, among those who call themselves very conservative, they still favor Trump over DeSantis, 54 to 38. Those who say they are just somewhat conservative back DeSantis over Trump, 59 to 29. So there's a bit of an ideological divide. There also is an education divide, which continues to be really interesting. Trump beats DeSantis among those with a high school education or less, while DeSantis does better among likely GOP primary voters who are college educated. So you can see there's also a bit of an urban-rural divide. There's an education divide. And then there is also an ideology divide there. So all really interesting in terms of how the GOP base is sort of sorting itself out here.
And let's go to the next one here because, as I said, it wasn't just one or two. We have now 4 different ones. So Marquette had DeSantis up by 20 points in a hypothetical two-way contest. The Wall Street Journal had him up by 14 points. The YouGov poll had him up by 5 points, and Quinnipiac +2. I don't know, maybe average it. Even then, it's just all over the map. It's been a year. I mean, we have a year.
It's crazy to look at, like, how do you get such different results?
That's what I mean. And then having come off the heels now of an election where the Democrats actually did better, maybe you could extrapolate that and say, well, you know, amongst these polls, maybe we should weight Ron DeSantis even more because the polls were off in Republican directions in 2022, but then in 2018 and 2022, GOP support is dramatically underrated. Trump support in the polls was always way off. I mean, if we'll remember, New Hampshire, I believe, which he won like in a blowout in 2016, they had it much tighter. Also, I also recall when he was winning 40, 50% of the vote in some of the later primaries that were happening in Wisconsin and Nevada and elsewhere, Trump was back in 2016. So the polls actually understated a lot of his support. Some of that had to do with momentum. I mean, look, I think we've all been through enough cycles here to say, hey, who the hell knows? If I'm Ron, though, I'm probably feeling better than I was before. Do I revise some of my analysis? Honestly, maybe, but I'm just at a point now, Krystal, where until the votes get cast, I just have no idea.
Until not even the votes get cast, until we see an actual race, until we see them going at each other, some kind of debate. Yeah, I feel like you do. I mean, we've seen in a lot of cycles where, you know, you'll have a candidate, Rick Santorum or Newt Gingrich or whoever, jump to the top of the polls, Michelle Bachmann, and then they quickly sort of fade away. Now, I think DeSantis has built a more durable base of support here than those sort of like flavor of the month candidates from the past. Because I think he has been, whatever you think, and I don't think much of the sort of policy postures he's taken, of the ideological position that he's leaned into, but it has been very clever in terms of appealing to a GOP base. The other thing that comes across in these numbers is it's not just that the people who know DeSantis like him, he's very well known among the Republican base. So he has very high name ID and very high favorability. Now, it's one thing when you're sort of in the abstract, when you haven't really been on the national stage, when you certainly haven't been trading direct blows with the former president who does maintain a significant amount of popularity. It's another thing when you are in that head-to-head contest. But listen, there is no doubt about it. These midterm elections were very damaging to Trump. I mean, they were really damaging to his brand. It was just as clear as it could possibly be that the closer tied a candidate was to him, the closer tied to his like stop the steal insanity that they were, the worse they performed. And then you have the counter example of DeSantis down in Florida just cleaning up, just romping the entire state going in a different direction than the rest of the country. That, I'm sure, is compelling for quite a few Republicans who are interested in actually winning and see that they really are not in a good position to do so at this point with the former president. And also, the man has done himself no favors. I mean, lackluster campaign announcement, boring as hell. and has done nothing since then except basically like hang out with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West. So it hasn't been a really stirring and inspiring campaign that he's run this far. He did tease some sort of a big announcement on Truth Social today, so we'll see what that is. And maybe after the holidays, maybe he comes out with a fuller schedule. But it seems like people are tired of him, and he's sort of tired of, running and actually being out front in the way that he used to absolutely adore.
And DeSantis is trying to outflank him from the right. One of the things I've heard a long time from the DeSantis folks is one of the big attack lines would be, well, DeSantis was anti-lockdown before Trump was. Trump is the one who ultimately let Dr. Fauci. He let the lockdowns occur under his reign. And DeSantis continues to do that. Let's throw this next one up there on the screen. DeSantis is actually currently impaneling a grand jury investigation of the COVID-19 vaccines, basically pointing a gun at Big Pharma to, quote, investigate any and all wrongdoing with respect to the COVID-19 vaccines. The grand jury panel, which was also impaneled with a roundtable with the Florida Surgeon General and a bunch of other panel of scientists and physicians, some of which were skeptical of the way that the vaccines were rolled out and the role of the pharmaceutical companies, said, quote, we'll be able to get data on whether they want to give it to us or not. In Florida, it is illegal to mislead and misrepresent, especially when you are talking about the efficacy of a drug. So, I mean, actually it could be kind of interesting if we get some of these folks who are under oath and elsewhere in terms of other motive. But I think it's an interesting sign in that they believe this COVID attack will work. I still remain deeply skeptical of it. First of all, like, we live in a republic. The reason DeSantis was able to do whatever he wanted in Florida and New York was able to do what they wanted is because the federal government doesn't actually control anything. Like, Trump was not the actual arbiter of whether the state was going to be in lockdown or not. For better or worse, all the president can do is like, please do this. Remember when the South Carolina governor wanted to open the state in May and Trump called him out to scream at him and he did it anyway? The president doesn't have that type of power, especially over these like mostly state and local decisions. So that's one. But maybe narratively it could work. But second, look at the votes. Not a single voter put COVID in their top 5. Some not even in the top 10 of voting. So I just don't know if that's going to hit. It's possible. It's possible that people could still be salty about it and all that, but I think a lot of people have moved on. So I really don't know which way to read.
Yeah, I mean, they've been signaling for a long time that this was going to be the critique that they had of Trump. I also am somewhat skeptical about the resonance at this point, not only because, listen, everybody's kind of moved on and it just doesn't hit in the way that it used to, but also, Trump kind of has him dead to rights on when DeSantis wouldn't admit whether or not he got a booster. And things like that, like putting him on the spot over, he ends up looking very sort of slimy, very disingenuous. It ends up being very clear, like, oh, you're posturing because you think this is the right political move to ultimately make. It was interesting to me to read the back and forth in this NBC News article from people in Trump's orbit who would talk to them and then, the DeSantis view. But you had Roger Stone, who told them prior to this, DeSantis' position was identical to Trump's, and he advocated the efficacy and safety of vaccines. That's his record. You have someone else saying, this is a shot across the bow. We know exactly what Ron is up to. We had another one who said, the fact is we've seen this coming for a year, ever since Ron started to get anti-vax. Yes, there's a portion of our base that is anti-vax, and some people could walk away from Trump over it. That's why Ron is doing it. It's so transparent. The official, Stephen Chung, who's an official spokesperson for Trump, said in a written statement that, quote, after China unleashed this deadly virus onto the rest of the world, President Trump's administration worked tirelessly to secure medical equipment to save the lives of Americans who were infected. Operation Warp Speed was a once-in-a-lifetime initiative that gave people the option of utilizing therapeutics if they wished to do so. He also fought against any attempt, as you were saying, Saagar, to federalize the pandemic response by protecting every state's rights. So that is their line. That's the way they're playing it, is like, number one, this dude was saying the same stuff as we were until he decided there was a political move he could make here. And number two, Trump is apparently very, and I think justifiably so, proud about Operation Warp Speed. He sees it as a significant accomplishment of his administration. And so he sort of has stubbornly refused, even when he's been booed at times by conservative audiences, to let go of that or to let anyone ultimately diminish that. So maybe it is a point of vulnerability. Maybe it is an area where he's out of step with the base. Is it the sort of driving, controlling issue, the way that, say, like the Iraq war vote was ultimately for Hillary against Obama? I'm not sure. And it's also, the record is a lot more mixed and a lot less clear cut than on something like, did you vote for the war or did you not vote for the war?
Very well said. And finally, though, and this is a point against Trump, and this actually, to me, might be the most salient one. Put this up there on the screen. Every poll out there shows us that Americans have little appetite for a Biden-Trump rematch in 2024. It is possible that the GOP, and maybe and I say this with extreme skepticism, has reached a point of exhaustion with Trump. And given the electoral consensus, where there was a major pushback against Stop the Steal and Trump MAGA-style candidates, that they could have just said, well, maybe I'm done with them. Again, I just remain skeptical. Many of the people and others that I've seen back Trump, some of the things that they love the most about him are part of the reason the broader electorate has objected to him. They like the trolling, they like the tweets, they like, everyone's like DeSantis is Trump without the X. I mean, in my experience, like the X is the only thing that they really love the most about Trump. I don't think they give a damn about the policy either way.
Yeah, I agree.
Anytime you meet a really diehard Trumper, they will twist themselves into knots about why, like, when he did something that was bad, it wasn't his fault. It was John Kelly or something like this. This is why Blue MAGA is like that too.
Yeah.
Like Blue MAGA, they do the same thing. Like, oh, it's not on Biden. That's, the people behind him forced his hand. It's like, these people they have agency. He was the most powerful man in the whole world. Like, he ultimately was the one who decided. So maybe they've come to my thinking. I have yet to, though, see any real evidence of that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And the other part of that poll about the Trump versus Biden rematch is like, ultimately, though, they're like, yeah, if he's the nominee, of course I'm going to vote for him. And the Democrats, too. I mean, actually, there's a large majority of Democrats who want to move on from Joe Biden, continue to want to move on from Joe Biden, even after, a better than expected midterm result. Really, I mean, it's sort of a low bar, but really a sort of historic result in terms of modern midterm outcomes for the party in power. But people are still like, the thing with Biden is, I think is I would like it to be an ideological critique of him. It is more of a style critique of, this guy just seems really old and I'm just not sure that he's up to this job anymore. Maybe we should get some new blood in here.
Seems reasonable, in my opinion.
It does seem reasonable. Yeah, I agree. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.